Hi, so in this video we will read about neonatal jaundice from marrow adhesion checks. Let's start. Bilirubin metabolism. Jaundice. Jaundice is basically increased levels of the bilirubin manifesting as yellowish discoloration. So there is RBC which is composed of which is made up of heme, right? Heme is a component of RBC, and because of this heme oxygenase enzyme, heme is converted into biliverdin. Because of this bilirubin reductase enzyme, biliverdin is converted into unconjugated bilirubin. Unconjugated bilirubin is also called as the indirect bilirubin, which is water insoluble and cannot be excreted out. So now the conjugation happens in the liver with the enzyme UDP glucuronide transferase UDP-GT in the liver, and then the conjugated bilirubin is formed, which is water soluble and can be excreted. Indirect bilirubin or the unconjugated bilirubin was water insoluble, and this conjugated bilirubin is water soluble. Now, so the bile is excreted in the ducts. From there into the second part of the duodenum and in the intestines, by the colonic bacteria, it is converted into 90% is converted into stercobilinogen and less than 10% into urobilinogen. And this urobilinogen is responsible for the light yellow urine and yellow stools. Very small portion taken back to the liver for enterohepatic circulation. Fine. So only conjugated bilirubin is excreted into the bile, from there to the second part of the duodenum, and then in the intestines and by the colonic bacteria converted to stercobilinogen and urobilinogen, and very small portion taken back to liver. Now comes the assessment of jaundice. So the serum bilirubin, these are the normal levels. Okay, total is 1 to 1.3. Direct or conjugated is less than zero point 0.3, and indirect one is around zero point 0.9. So when we call it visible jaundice, when in children, more than 5 mg per dl. Now the screening test for the jaundice, there is something called as the transcutaneous bilirubinometer. It is a handheld device which is placed at the sternum and useful only if the baby is more than 35 weeks of gestation and reliable if the baby is more than 24 hours old. Fine. Useful only if more than 35 weeks of gestation and reliable only if baby is more than 24 hours old. Second one is the visual assessment by the Kramer's rule. Let's see what's Kramer's rule. It states that the jaundice spreads in the cephalocaudal progression from the head to the trunk and then to the limbs, and it first develops in the eyes. Fine, this jaundice spreads in the cephalocaudal from head to toe, firstly starting from the eyes. So these are the zones of jaundice. In the head eyes, bilirubin level 6 mg per dl will be visible. In the trunk, it will reach if the bilirubin level is 9. Lower abdomen and thigh if the bilirubin level is 12. Upper and the lower limbs if it is 15, and if it is more than 15, then it will be visible in the palms and soles also. Unconjugated bilirubin more than 15 mg per dl, we all know that it is water soluble, right? But it is fat, so it's fat soluble. So it will cross the blood-brain barrier and it will cause the brain damage. So, which type of bilirubin will cause the brain damage? It is the unconjugated one because it is fat soluble. Now coming to the forms of jaundice, most common is the physiological jaundice. Let's read about this physiological jaundice because it is the most common one, so we should be able to differentiate pathological jaundice and physiological jaundice. Increase in the unconjugated bilirubin always. In the physiological jaundice, there is always increase in the unconjugated bilirubin. Due to immature conjugating enzyme, that is UDP glucuronide transferase, we saw right this conjugation takes place in the liver, and because during the initial days of the birth, there is immature conjugating enzyme. This enzyme is immature, which causes unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. This appears by 24 to 72 hours of age, this physiological jaundice, and it peaks by day 3, may present up to 1 to 2 weeks, and for this, no treatment is required. Fine. It just keep in mind that it is not appearing within 24 hours. It is appearing by 24 to 72 hours. Okay. And there is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia always. Peak is by day 3. Now coming to the pathological jaundice. This is very important for us to understand and remember. On day one, when do we call a jaundice a pathological jaundice? These are all the conditions. First condition, day one, any jaundice more than 5 mg per deciliter, but if it appears between 18 to 24 hours after the birth, could be physiological also. Okay, so what is seen here is any jaundice appearing on the day one is called as the pathological jaundice. But there is a slight overlap between the hours, that is 18 to 24 hours after the birth. It could be physiological also. Second condition is on the day 2, if jaundice is in the arms and legs, that is more than 10 mg per dl, so that will be pathological. On the day 2, if jaundice is appearing on the arms and legs, then it is pathological. Therefore, thereafter jaundice more than 12 to 14 mg per dl is always pathological. Jaundice more than 12 to 14 mg per dl is pathological. Anytime jaundice in the palms and soles, because it was appearing is more than 15 mg per dl, right? So if jaundice is appearing anytime between in palms and soles, then it is called is the pathological. Rate of rise of bilirubin is more than 5 mg per dl per day or more than 0.2 mg per dl per hour. So if bilirubin is rising by more than 5 per day, then it is pathological jaundice. This transcutaneous the device saw, right? Transcutaneous bilirubinometer. This TCB nomograms are above 95th percentile for the age, then it is pathological jaundice. There are signs of bilirubin encephalopathy, then it is pathological jaundice. And any jaundice persisting more than 2 weeks in the term babies and more than 3 weeks in the preterm babies is also pathological. So we read about 8 conditions when a jaundice is called pathological. Just revise it faster. Day 1, any jaundice appearing on the day 1 is pathological, but there's a slight overlap between the physiological and pathological between 18 to 24 hours. On day 2, any jaundice in the arms and legs that is more than 10 mg per dl is pathological. Jaundice more than 12 to 14 mg per dl is pathological. Any jaundice on the palms and soles, because it is more than 12 to 14, right? It is 15. If it is appearing on the palms and soles, then it is pathological. If the rate of the rise of bilirubin is more than 5 mg per dl per day or more than 0.2 mg per dl per hour, is pathological. On the TSB nomogram, if it is above the 95th percentile, there are signs of bilirubin encephalopathy. And any jaundice persisting more than 2 weeks in term babies and more than 3 weeks in the preterm babies is pathological. Now let's read about this TSB bilirubin nomograms. Compare the serum bilirubin with age of the baby in hours after the birth. These percentile lines depend on the gestational age, risk factors like asphyxia, sepsis, hypothermia. Any value more than 95th percentile is significant and pathological, and indicates that the jaundice requires treatment by the phototherapy or exchange transfusion. Fine, so if it is more than 95th percentile, then the jaundice requires treatment by either phototherapy or exchange transfusion. Now, the etiology of the pathological jaundice. First one is the hemolysis. So hemolysis can be seen in either inherited or acquired causes, because all the kinds of hemolytic disorders is not present in a newborn, right? So there are certain conditions which can cause hemolysis in a neonate, that is G6PD and hereditary spherocytosis. These two conditions are the inherited conditions which can cause hemolysis within few days of the birth, G6PD and hereditary spherocytosis. Now the second one is the acquired one, in which maternal antibody mediated lysis of the baby's RBC due to RH or ABO blood group incompatibility. That again can cause hemolysis, this incompatibility thing. Second one is UDP GT defects. There is There is defect in the this UDP-GT enzyme. UDP-GT. So this will cause Crigler-Najjar. This will be seen in this UDP glucuronide transferase defects will be seen in this Crigler-Najjar syndrome, hypothyroidism, and sepsis. Crigler-Najjar, which is a autosomal recessive condition, and there are two types of Crigler-Najjar defects: type 1 in which there is absent enzyme, and type 2 in which there is low levels of the enzyme. Third condition in which the pathological jaundice can be seen is increased enterohepatic circulation. This increased enterohepatic circulation can be seen in the breastfeeding issues or intestinal obstruction. Right? Breastfeeding issues or the intestinal obstruction. Fourth one is the extravasated blood, which can be due to cephalhematoma or bruising. Fifth one is the increased conjugated bilirubin, which is seen in the neonatal cholestasis. Now moving ahead to the complication parts. First one is the bilirubin encephalopathy or the BIND, that is bilirubin induced neurological damage. So there is brain damage due to the increased levels of unconjugated bilirubin, as it is lipid soluble and it can cross the blood-brain barrier. The areas affected is mainly the basal ganglia, pathologically called kernicterus, and may be acute or chronic. So due to this increased unconjugated bilirubin, it is getting deposited in the basal ganglia, causing kernicterus, and it may be acute or chronic. We can see, right, yellowish deposition in the basal ganglia. So now let's see the difference, acute and chronic deposition. Acute in the, this is, we are reading about this bilirubin encephalopathy, right? So this acute one is occurring in 0 to 3 days. If the acute bilirubin encephalopathy is happening in the within 0 to 3 days, there will be hypotonia, there will be decreased activity, and there will be high pitch cry or the shrill cry. And after 3 days, there will be hypotonia, seizures, and fever will be seen. Okay, starting with hypotonia and decreased activity and progressing to hypertonia and seizures. Also, for the acute bind, there is hypertonia of histotonus, and retrocolis is seen in hyperextended neck. That is, retrocolis is a hyperextended neck. These all things are happening. Now, chronic one is happening in the older children in which there is basal ganglia damage. Due to that, there are extrapyramidal cerebral palsy causing chorea, athetosis, abnormal tone, and posture. There is sensory neural hearing loss, there is upward gaze palsy, and there are dental problems causing enamel dysplasia. Moving ahead to the management of jaundice, we have to first monitor visual assessment plus transcutaneous bilirubinometer every 8 to 12 hours for 3 to 5 days after the birth. Step 1, look for the serious jaundice. It requires immediate treatment. So we have to look for these: any jaundice on the day 1, jaundice in the palms and soles, TSB nomogram more than 95th percentile for age, and signs of bilirubin encephalopathy. So these were all the types of serious jaundice. Fine. Day 1, palms and soles more than 95th percentile and bilirubin encephalopathy. We saw like bilirubin encephalopathy acute symptoms were hypotonia and shrill cry and decreased activity, which after 3 days progressed to hypertonia, seizures, and fever. Now, in the step 2, we have to look for the signs of bilirubin encephalopathy. If they are present, we have to do the exchange transfusion, and if they are absent, then phototherapy. Send serum bilirubin for the further management. If no features of the serious jaundice, does the baby have significant jaundice? Day 2, jaundice in the arms and legs, rate of rise in the bilirubin. Okay, fine. Now we are reading about the step 3, and we have to find We ruled out the serious jaundice. Now we have to find about the significant jaundice. So any jaundice on the day 2 in the arms and legs is called as the significant jaundice. Rate of rise of bilirubin more than 5 mg per dl per day or more than 0.2 mg per dl per hour is significant jaundice. And if jaundice is persisting for more than 2 weeks in the term babies and more than 3 weeks in the preterm babies is considered significant jaundice. So if significant jaundice is present, we have to go for the investigations. Serum bilirubin in the nomogram. If value is above the cutoff nomogram, start the phototherapy or under observation. And if serum bilirubin in the nomogram value is below the cutoff, then we have to continue this monitoring process. Okay. Now coming to the treatment of the neonatal jaundice. Phototherapy, UV rays of 460 to 490 nanometers are given. There are certain lamps, that is compact fluorescent lamps, CFL lamps, and the LED, that is light emitting diodes. And uses CFL are more commonly used, but efficacy of the LED is more. Distance between the baby and the light should be 30 to 45 centimeter. Baby must be naked except for the eyes and the gonads, as it can cause damage to the retina and testis. Effective irradiance at least 30 micro, I think it's watt, centimeter square per nanometer. Complications. We are reading about the complications of phototherapy. So first complication which can happen is damage to the retina and testis, which can be avoided by covering them. So simple. Dehydration due to heat, avoided by increased duration and frequency of breastfeeding. Just by increasing the breastfeeding, we can prevent this dehydration thing. Hypocalcemia can occur. Bronze, there is something called as the bronze baby syndrome. Occurs in babies with the increased conjugated bilirubin or in the baby with the hepatic dysfunction, formation of the brown pigmentation all over the baby's skin and in the body fluids. It is an avoidable complication as the phototherapy should not be given in the babies with the conjugated bilirubinemia. Fine. So phototherapy should not, this is important thing to know. Phototherapy should not be given in the babies with the conjugated bilirubinemia, and this bronze baby syndrome occurs in the baby with increased conjugated bilirubin or in babies with the hepatic dysfunction. Okay. Moving ahead to the second therapy, which can be done, is the exchange transfusion. What are the indications of exchange transfusion? First is the signs of bilirubin encephalopathy. Second one is the RH incompatibility, in which the cord blood bilirubin is more than 5 mg per dl or hemoglobin is less than 10 mg per dl. That is significant hemolysis has been occurred, and nomogram cutoff values is more than the 80 range. Then we have to start with the exchange transfusion. Fine, there are three indications that we are reading about: bilirubin encephalopathy, cord blood bilirubin more than 5 mg per dl, or hemoglobin less than 10 mg per dl, which suggests significant hemolysis and a nomogram cutoff values of more than exchange transfusion range. Now, the procedure of the exchange transfusion: exchange of the baby's blood twice its volume of a fresh blood, hence also called as the double volume exchange transfusion. Normal volume is 80 to 90 ml per kg, and the volume that needs to be transfused is 160 to 180 ml per kg, which is double of the normal volume, right? Now coming to the type of blood: cross match with the baby's blood as well as the mother's blood. O negative blood commonly used as it does not contain any antigens. RH incompatibility: RH negative and the blood group suspended in the AB plasma. ABO incompatibility: RH compatible with the baby's blood and the blood group O suspended in the AB plasma. So this is the other indications in RH and blood group compatible with the baby. Moving ahead to the prolonged jaundice in newborns and persistent jaundice. First, let's read about this persistent jaundice. We already saw, right, more than 2 weeks in term babies and more than 3 weeks in preterm babies is considered as the significant jaundice. What are the risk factors for this persistent jaundice? Uncommon one can be inherited disorders like the Crigler-Najjar syndrome, as we already saw, in which there was defect in the UDP glucuronide transferase enzyme. In type 1 it was absent, and in type 2 it was decreased. Common factors which can cause prolonged jaundice can be due to breastfeeding issues, which are transient conditions. Okay, first one is the breastfeeding jaundice, and second one is the breast milk jaundice. So, what is happening in breastfeeding jaundice? There is problems in the feeding process. So, there is decreased duration or the frequency of the feeds. Fine, there is problem in the feeding process. In the breast milk jaundice, there is problem in the breast milk. Milk contains components, example the pregnenolone, that interfere with the conjugation. So this breast milk components is interfering with the conjugation. And in both these conditions, we have to continue the breastfeeding. The other condition, first we read about the breastfeeding issues. Other conditions which can cause persistent jaundice is continuing hemolysis and cholestasis. And other uncommon conditions which can cause persistent jaundice is, other than inherited disorder, it is hypothyroidism and extravasated blood. Moving ahead to the management of prolonged jaundice. Step 1, does the baby have features of cholestasis? If yes, then we have to uh, follow the path of neonatal cholestasis. Step 2, if there is no features of cholestasis, then we have to do the visual assessment by the trans TSB. If it is below the phototherapy range, that is TSB is less than 15 mg per dl, then we have to continue under the observation. This arrow is following here. Then we have to continue observation, and most common causes breastfeeding issues. For this below phototherapy range or TSB less than 15 mg per dl. Most common causes are breastfeeding issues. But if on the visual assessment it is above the phototherapy range, then we will start the phototherapy. Evaluate for the causes like G6PD and RH incompatibility, RH and ABO incompatibility, and thyroid function test. And if all these are negative, then we have to make the diagnosis of Crigler-Najjar syndrome. We have to rule out this Crigler-Najjar syndrome. So basically, it is diagnosis of exclusion, Crigler-Najjar one. G6PD, we have to rule out RH and ABO incompatibility and thyroid function test. We saw, right, type 1 is type 1 is more severe because there is absence of the enzyme and it may require liver transplantation. Type 2 is in which the less enzyme is present, decreased levels of enzymes are present, and phenobarbital can be used in the type 2 because it induces this UDP-GT. So this is all about this neonatal jaundice. Thank you.